This is Monica Michelle, explicitly sick for the Invisible Not Broken Network. Usually I don't do intros, but we did get into some very deep issues. So today I got to interview Jason from Discomfort Zone podcast. Awesome, amazing, wonderful person. It was a great interview. The reason I'm doing this intro is because we did get pretty deep into the weeds at the end about suicide, and definitely please, if this is something that you are struggling with, at the top of the show notes, I will have suicide prevention hotline numbers, both voice and text. And you are valued, you are needed, you are wanted. Please, if you are having these issues, go to the top. If you go over to show notes as well, you will find Jason's podcast. I recommend it. The only thing I can say that I don't like about it is there's not more episodes. He is a wonderful storyteller, and I think you're going to really love his podcast. And I hope you enjoy the interview as much as I hope you see how much I enjoyed giving it. Hope that Jason will be back on the podcast soon. He was a blast to chat with. I will stop talking now, and I hope you enjoyed the episode this week. Be kind, be gentle, and in whatever way it looks like to you, be a badass. If you can and you're able to support the podcast, even I do this out of pocket. So we do have a Patreon account. If you can, please go and donate. There's no paywall. Everything is available to everyone, but this is just out of the generosity of your spirit because you want to support us in what we're doing. If that is not in your pocketbook plans, please share the episodes. That is, we're very proud to say we hit 200,000 downloads, and those thanks to you. So thank you and enjoy the episode.
No worries whatsoever.
Oh, I'm really happy to meet you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Big fan of your show. It's cool to be on here.
You have a new fan in my entire family after your rap act.
Oh yeah, you liked it?
My husband's like absolutely obsessed with you now.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote it myself. I got a bit of some help from one of my friends. He's a rapper, so he helped me kind of clean it up. So that was a fun little project.
That was commitment. Did you do it in one take? Because that was breath control.
So I actually record the audio beforehand. So
Okay.
I was really only like lip syncing when I did the video record there, and I just synced it together.
I'm feeling a little better because I was super amazed that you could stay focused.
Oh, yeah.
Focus is not my main skill set. So
I hear you, as most of us with brain fog.
that's that definitely makes it a meandering interview. So I will if I get off focus, please. You're very skilled at interviewing people, so I will defer to you to keep us on topic.
I'm okay. I make myself sound better in my own editing. I'm usually not the most well-spoken.
You have me desperately jealous. We do not have an editor. As I'm sure anyone who's listened to the show can attest, we have no editors on staff.
Well, it's got a wonderful flow, I find, so.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to continue that, but I'm going to keep
Yeah.
us off topic for one more second because
Mhm.
I went through your episodes and I'm in love with your podcast, Discomfort podcast.
Discomfort zone, yeah.
It was my favorite episode is when you were talking about your trip through, Tibet or through Vietnam or
Thailand?
Thailand. I'm doing great
Yeah.
today. This is what happens when I don't take my painkillers before an episode. So please forgive me. But you mentioned a cobra attack and then you didn't give the story.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I want the story. So I am going to use my power of I have you here and ask you what happened with the cobra.
Okay, so this was in northern Thailand. We were in this very small town. It's called Pai, and it's pretty remote. It's a pretty big tourist hotspot. But anyways, this was some random morning when essentially the first thing we do every single day would be hop on our motorbikes and go around town and just go do some exploring. And we were traveling with another Canadian that we had just met, and I was on the back of my friend's moped. And we just see this guy in front of us. He's, maybe 50 meters ahead of us, and he goes around a turn, and it looks as he's going around the turn like he hits a stick in the road, and the stick kind of like plops up. So we just see like one end of a stick pop up, and we're like, oh, that's interesting. And as we get closer, we're probably going like 40 kilometers an hour as we're about to go around this turn. And right as we're within like maybe 10 meters of it, it just turns around, it like flares open its neck at us, and like hisses and then lunges. And luckily my friend had some like really, really quick reflexes, because he just like quickly like just skirted around it, and barely missed it. But yeah, I mean, this could be one of those tall, folk stories where, oh, it came within 1 foot of you, and the story changes every time you tell it. But I mean, from my memory, it was within a foot or two. Like it lunged towards my leg. It came very, very close. And luckily, due to my friend's really quick thinking, we dodged it, and we we were safe.
I'm so glad I asked that story. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it was quite terrifying, especially when you're in a very remote village in a third world country. You're not really going to have access to good medical.
You mean you didn't just pack anti-venom in your backpack? I figure that's like a crocodile hunter, like, or yeah, that's a you just do that, right?
That would have been the smart thing to do. No, we weren't that prepared, unfortunately, but
Was
didn't
that the
need
trip
it.
where you got injured, or was that a different trip?
No, I'm trying to think. No, so I didn't actually suffer like my main injury. Are you referring to the one where that led to all my chronic pain?
Yep, that one.
So that wasn't actually a trip. That
That's a sad
was
segue into getting back onto chronic illness topic from Cobras.
no worries. No, we can segue right into it. So it was that was actually about 8 months earlier that I suffered the injury. So when I was on this trip, I already was in the very early stages of chronic illness and my chronic pain journey. And so the injury itself, just to give you some context, fourth year student, I was perfectly healthy.
I'm
I
sorry
was,
to stop you for a
yep,
second. I'm in the
yep.
US system, so I don't know what fourth year means.
Oh, yeah. So this is my final year of university.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm about to graduate. This was like the very first semester, so this is in the fall. And so at the time I'm studying engineering physics. I'm playing lots of sports. I'm on the triathlon team and all that. And I'm just playing a pickup game of basketball, so nothing too intense. And I was battling somebody for a rebound. I caught the ball and I twisted around really quickly and passed the ball up court, and as I twisted, I just felt like the most intense stabbing pain right in my ribs. So it honestly, the way that I would describe it, it felt, not that I know what it feels like, but it felt like somebody just stabbed me in the ribs. And it hurt to breathe. So immediately I just limped over to the sideline. I collapsed on the ground there, and I just laid there until the end of the game. I didn't get up or anything. And right after the game, I tried to stand up, and I couldn't. Like, I just literally couldn't support myself. It was like the most intense stabbing pain ever. So I got transported to the hospital in an ambulance, and they just diagnosed it as an intercostal muscle strain. So those are the muscles that you use to help facilitate breathing. They like help expand and contract the chest cavity. And essentially at the hospital, they just told me, give it 3 weeks and you'll be perfectly fine and you'll be able to return to sports. And yeah, for me, that wasn't the case. That was the beginning of a really, really long journey.
And what did that journey end up becoming? Like, did you get diagnosed afterwards with something, or?
So it wasn't for a very long time. And so I didn't hear the words fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome for another 3 years after that. So a really long time. And essentially what happened was, following that injury, most people, when they get an injury, the pain is there until the tissue itself recovers. And that's our body's way of protecting way of protecting ourselves. With me, that didn't happen. And I was under so much stress during my fourth year. This is when I'm trying to lock up a job for after graduation. So I'm going off to job interviews all over the place. I'm working to teaching assistant jobs. I'm, working in a very, very demanding program. So it was like I spent the next week in bed, trying to recover. And I was in so much pain that I couldn't focus or even do any homework from home. I essentially just fell so incredibly far behind that once I returned to class, I just had to work like nonstop. And like by the end of the year, it was like I was living on coffee. I'd study until 3 in the morning and wake up at 8 o'clock and just chug back like 4 cups of coffee and go back to class. So um, yeah, essentially my brain was in this hypersensitized state where the pain I was experiencing was amplifying the stress that I was having, and the stress I was having was just amplifying the pain. So it was like alarm bells are constantly going off in my brain, and essentially after the injury itself had healed, this vicious cycle of chronic pain just continued. So me putting myself through all that stress during my last year of university created this vicious cycle and actually changed my brain chemistry. And it changed the way that my brain perceived pain.
So is that where the fibromyalgia came into the diagnosis?
Yeah, well, so again, that was still the very beginning stages, and I just kind of pushed through. And I even, after I graduated, I went on that trip to Thailand, had an amazing time. My pain actually went way down. I think I should just go and live in Thailand and just go on a permanent vacation out there.
If nothing, you've got some of the best stories from it.
Yeah. Oh, and absolutely. So after I returned from Thailand, I came back. I worked at an engineering job, which I absolutely loved, but it was sitting for 8 hours a day. And in doing that, just gradually from month to month, the pain returned and it spread across my body. So in the beginning, it was just on the right side of my abdomen. A month later, it was on the left side, and then it went up my upper back and, through my head, through my neck, and through the rest of my body. So that was when the fibromyalgia settled in, but it wasn't until 2014 that I actually received the diagnosis for it.
So how did you make your decisions? I mean, you're pretty young. You'd started a job. How did you make your choices on starting or stopping careers? I know you're in Canada, which I know that makes a difference in what your decisions are based on um, anyone listening to both of us. We're in very different systems. So your health insurance is not tied to your job. So that makes it a little different on choices, but you're still building a life.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, having free medical care is wonderful.
Yeah, just let the envy from me drip across
Yeah.
the border here. I'm just trying to let the green die down a bit.
Sorry, I'm rubbing it in here.
It's okay. We're used to it. Believe me, we're used to it over here.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really something where in the beginning, it wasn't really something I acknowledged or really spoke about openly to those around me too much. I was like, oh, I've got a little bit of pain, but, I'm working through it and I'm sure it'll go away soon. But it was becoming clear that that wasn't the case. And I was having conversations with my parents about telling them, I think that my health is getting worse and I think I need to stop working so that I can focus on it. And at the beginning, they didn't understand how bad it was, especially when you look at somebody who looks like a perfectly healthy 22-year-old. They just thought, okay, he's got a little bit of nagging injury. Like, this is not something you need to stop your career. And, I was at the beginning of my career, had a very good job lined up. And it really just came down to I didn't speak with my boss about it until it got really, really bad. And that's when I just went to go and speak with him and tell him, like, listen, this is getting really, really serious. I need to take a couple of months off to go and focus on it. And luckily he was um, incredibly compassionate about that and completely understanding. He's like, listen, like, the work that you're doing here, that do not prioritize this. Like, you need to really focus on your health and make sure you're taking care of that. So I took a couple of months off to focus on rehab, and then I went back to work part time. And I was, maybe working 15 to 20 hours a week, and I did that for the next 6 months. But by the end of that 6 months, it was like things were just getting worse. My pain, I couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes in a row without excruciating pain. So I was just, I'd sit at a keyboard and, try to type out an email that should take me 2 minutes, and then it would take me 30 minutes just because I couldn't focus long enough to actually, put the words Yeah, put the words in.
We're doing good with the words. Sorry, I did not
Yeah.
mean to make you do a spit take. I'm so sorry.
No, no worries.
So how did you I'm sorry, I'm always really interested in like how we make our choices and our decisions. Like I'm much older than you are, and I had like 10 years of careers that I kept switching because I kept getting too sick to do the job I trained for. So I trained for a new job and start that career, and then I get too sick for that and I'd start a different one. I'm always intrigued at like how you make those choices on what you're going to do next. Like when you realize that engineering and sitting at a desk was not going to work out, what was your next step? How did you figure out what you were going to do next?
Well, I just went and spoke to my boss and told him then that I needed to take an indefinite leave of absence. And my plan was to really just take a couple of months off, go work on swimming, do Tai Chi, practice meditation, do all that stuff, get my health under control, and then come right back to it. And that would be that. But that just really didn't happen at all. Like even after I was away from the job for a couple of months, my health didn't improve at all. And so I kept at it with my rehab. Um, it was a really tough winter. So this is going back to 2014, and my body, like most other people with chronic illness, they struggle with the cold, and especially, being up here in Canada, we've got our minus 20 degrees Celsius
Okay, I'm feeling a
winters.
little better about California.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 50. We're terrified.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Oh, it snowed last week here. It was
Are you
horrible.
serious?
Yeah, no, I'm serious. There were
Oh
snow
my God.
flurries coming down all day. It was nuts.
And we were all like, wow, it's raining in May and it's 60 degrees. What are we going to do?
Yeah, you do not get my pity for that at all.
No, no, nor should we. I mean, we should get your pity for no health care and for like, I think right now the houses just in the suburbs are going for almost 900,000.
Wow.
Like for like a 3 bedroom, 1 bath. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So that's what we get your
absurd.
sympathy for. We do not get sympathy for weather. It's like our freezing, like where people start freaking out, putting on like jackets and scarves, 50. That's where people start flipping out around here. And that's like the coldest it gets in the area I live. It's like 50 is about it. That's if it's
When
lower than that, it's news.
when it gets to 50, we're wearing shorts here in Canada. So
We can always tell the implants here in the Bay Area by like the people who like got sent over to Google from like the Midwest or from Canada because they're all in shorts through the whole time, just looking at us like we're nuts with our sweaters.
yeah, yeah, it's what you're acclimatized to.
It is, but I can I actually I felt all of my like muscles just tense up with the idea of snow and cold. That must have been brutal to deal with like the newfound I don't know, like I don't know if you get that restless feeling. You're a traveler. I used to be a traveler. Like all of a sudden your borders get to be your room sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has been really difficult. I mean, especially with the pandemic going on here right now. So that's something that's
Welcome
definitely
world
feeling.
to our quarantine lives.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that was something that was very, very challenging. And so, um, getting back to, I guess, where I was back in 2014 and talking about my journey. So, I actually made the decision to go back to Thailand in 2014 when, after I'd stopped work and it was really, really awful over here and I was struggling just accepting the limitations of my illness. And so I just decided to go back to Thailand and meditate there for a little while, stay at a monastery. Um, and sorry, I totally forgot. What was your question again? Brain fog moment.
Sorry for everyone who's written in how much you hate my laugh. I couldn't help it. God, if nothing gives you a tough skin, it's podcasting. No idea how annoying my voice or my laugh was until then. Sorry, I was asking you, we're gonna do really well today. I really should have taken a painkiller before I talked to you. It's literally weighing like I haven't eaten breakfast. Do I take my painkiller and possibly throw up during the interview? It was not vomiting that went out. Well, I will ask you a different question then. What got you to start your podcast?
So it was actually quite natural how that ended up. And so in 2016 and 2017, I went through this downward spiral where I got very, very sick in a short period of time. And, by the later part of 2016, I was essentially bedridden for 95% of the day. I would only leave to go up to the washroom and walk down to the end of the hall. And for a while, my coping mechanism was watching TV, Netflix, watching YouTube, studying chess videos, doing all that sort of stuff. But I developed really, really severe headaches, and I couldn't focus. I couldn't look at a screen for more than a couple of minutes without getting excruciating headaches. So one of my friends just recommended to me that I start listening to podcasts because I don't have to look at anything. I can shut my eyes while I do that. And so that kind of became my portal to the world outside of my bedroom. When you're really trapped and you feel like you're missing out on all of human experience, it was a way of listening to other people's stories, was a way of like connecting to the larger human experience. And in a way, I almost felt like I experienced a little bit of their world, or like I almost felt like I had walked in their shoes.
Mm.
And that, to me, that was a really wonderful experience. And yeah, I guess after I started to recover, it was like, I need to start a podcast. And what do I have experience with? Well, I'm going through something that is a pretty unique experience to the vast majority of the world. And I think in storytelling overall, the more representation in chronic illness and disability that we can get, the better. So yeah, I kind of felt like, I know there's a lot of people out there who are too sick to go and share their stories. So I felt obligated to go and do that myself, since I was lucky enough to have the recovery that I had.
That is one thing that I fell head over heels for your podcast, was what a great storyteller you are. I'm a lit nerd, so I love a good storyteller.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I'm completely obsessed. I went down to, I know I don't sound like I did my research. I really did my research. I really went down a rabbit hole in all of your content, and your episodes are amazing. I was really in love with them.
Thank you so much.
So one of the things
I'm-
in your show notes that I was like fascinated by was you made a really important distinction between living with pain and suffering with pain.
Yeah, and that is, language can be so, I find even making that simple switch of saying that you're living with pain rather than suffering from pain. I feel like even just saying that out loud, it changes the way that you view your experience. Like when I think about my own experience, I'm not suffering 24/7. It's not like my mind isn't constantly going there. Yeah, I've got physical symptoms that never let up, that impact every moment of my life. But, right now when I'm doing this podcast, yeah, I'm in pain, but I'm also enjoying this. This is a cool experience. So I'm not really so much focused on it at this exact moment.
You seem really good at keeping your focus. There was a story you told about your time at the monastery, and really, I'm going to go back and re-listen to it because it hit me really hard. I'm not just fascinated by compassion, but that's been one of the things I've worked the hardest on in myself, is finding compassion with people. And you had an unusual moment of compassion with someone that you weren't expecting to. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. No, I was just trying to lead you into that story, or like just to talk about that moment where you met someone you weren't expecting to connect with. And I, like, seriously, my favorite part of the whole thing was you talking about, like, I am so mad right now and I should be in bliss, but this person ticked me off. And I just love this idea, like, because we're supposed to learn how to meditate through anything, through pain, through discomfort, through, like, the whole point of like learning that focus is that you're in the middle of something bad so you can focus. And that you're like, if that bad thing had not just happened, gosh darn it, I'd be in bliss right now.
And it can be the smallest thing too. It can be anything, and you're like, if that one thing didn't happen, I'd be perfectly happy. My experience would be wonderful here if this one jerk didn't piss me off.
90%
uh,
reference day, I swear.
yeah, absolutely. I met this. Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. I met this
And by the way,
very.
please go
Yeah,
over to the podcast. Like, anyone listening, go over to listen to Discomfort Zone, listen to all the episodes. Yeah, it's fantastic.
yeah. I met this. Thank you so much for referencing it. Huge fan of my show. Sorry, huge fan of your show as well.
This is what happens when chronic illness people interview each other. Throw in a
Yeah.
dash of ADD and we are set.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna have a lot. I always have issues with my words, so that's that's gonna be a recurring theme here. Yeah, I met a very Give me one quick second here. Dizziness spell. That's fun.
We're both doing great. I don't know if you heard at the start of the podcast, but there's a loud popping sound, and that was my femur coming out. So we're,
Oh man.
we're doing good with dizzy spells and dislocating joints. It'll be fun.
Wow, you just smiled right through it.
I was a ballerina for years and years, and anyone who's a ballerina can tell you we could have bleeding toes, we can snap ankles, and we were still going to smile through the entire performance, no problem.
Yeah, that's the sport of pain tolerance, right?
It was incredible training on you're going to just be able to look fine.
Yeah, yeah, all about presentation.
Well, that and not eating and smoking, or definitely, and the coffee, lots and lots of coffee.
Very super healthy.
It was such a healthy sport, man.
Yeah.
I've heard it's gotten way better, but when I had my daughter, I was like, yeah, anything that requires you to eat less to be in the performance is not something I'm signing up for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you're going to tell me about your trip before Dizzy. Are you
Yeah.
settled into? Is
Okay,
at any time you need to take a break or stop, just we can put this on pause.
Yep, I'll let you know. I'm good for now.
Okay.
So yeah, I ended up at this monastery out in the jungle in Thailand and met this very interesting person there. The vast majority of people that you meet, they're very calm, soft spoken. I don't even know, like those very wise sounding people, and just people who are very compassionate to be around. You just feel more relaxed. And then there was this one person who showed up who was just started telling us, he did not fit the bill. He didn't look like he belonged there at all. And he began bragging about how he had spent his last couple years living in a small city in northern Thailand, how he had purchased a fake teaching certificate to go and teach children there. And during his nights, he would go around,
Not teaching
doing
children.
not teaching children. Not this is not the person you want teaching your children at all. I would not send my kids there if I had them.
Not without some serious recovery and drug rehab.
Yeah, seriously. He essentially would just go around and he'd be shooting up heroin all night. He would, go get prostitutes every single night, and he would just go back to work. And then he ended up becoming a drug smuggler. So he'd smuggle in drugs from Myanmar into Thailand. And so we're all sitting around a table at this monastery, and he's going on about this story. And I think everybody at the table at the time was like, this we're not the people who are going to be like rooting for you when you're telling us all this stuff. And yeah, it was kind of an uncomfortable experience. And I just kind of went away and I was like, I want to really avoid this person. That's not the reason I came here. This is the end of my trip. I want to be relaxed, and this is what I came here to avoid. And yeah, anyways, I didn't see him for a day or two after that. And um, yeah, when we ended up seeing him the next time, we could see he was going through heroin withdrawal, and he was talking about his suicidal ideation. And like just hearing that completely transformed the way that I viewed him. It went from this person who you see who is extremely flawed, and has made some very bad decisions, to all of a sudden when you hear that they're suffering, um, it completely changes the way you perceive them. And him and I actually went on to like become friends. I skipped
I
one of
was
the
so
last days.
curious what the post was to this.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I haven't actually seen him since then. This is more of like we became friends at the monastery. I actually have no idea what he got up to after that. Never spoke to him, but we were, yeah. In the story, as I mentioned, I kind of skipped a meditation session near the end. I skipped a lot of them. I wasn't the best student. Um, and we just played cards all afternoon one day, and he was just telling me about his entire life plans and how he wanted to get things back on track. And yeah, it was very interesting. It completely flipped my perception of him.
I don't know if you've gotten to see the show yet, but The Good Place.
I haven't. No.
Okay, I'm putting this on your list of like on your radar of one of the best shows I've ever watched. But your story reminded me a little bit of one of the main characters in it, who's um it starts the show as a monk. And I'm not going to ruin this for anyone or for you, but it's like basically ethics 101, but in a comedy show. And I will not ruin twists. I won't discuss this, but I really want to, because your discussion on this just makes me think of that character Jason so much, and his journey through like being a very unexpected person who actually seems to be one of the most enlightened people. Even though he'd be like, if you saw him and you knew like his past and who he had been, you'd be like, not the person I would guess as a monk. But at the very end of it, you're like, wow, that you might actually be the most enlightened person in this whole thing of like actually like living in the world and feeling compassion in a way of like going beyond someone's walls of like, I did this bad thing, I am this bad person, and then like just hiding all the like need behind that.
I've got to put that on my list. I'm
Please
definitely going to
do.
check that out. Those are the most compelling stories to me. Like when you think you know somebody and then you don't, and you see this huge shift in them.
I don't want to like traumatize you because like on your thing, you're like, the thing that drains me is political talk, and I'm not going to talk politics, I promise. But one of the things I've learned the most is in discussing things, I'll talk to anyone. No one has to agree with me to talk to me. I just don't handle disrespect well. But like I will respect and chat with anyone, and even talking to people who I vastly disagree with. I mean, I live in the United States under, I can't even say his name. But I live in a time and a period with people I disagree with who are in power, and people who are even my family very much disagree with me. And I found it really important to learn to speak in compassion first, and to like try to figure out what, like, you seem scared, you seem really scared, like, and you seem to be hurting. So let's work from there, and then we can like move politics aside a bit and talk about what you're scared about.
Absolutely, and just getting to chat with people. I feel like that when if you don't understand them and you just label them as like, oh, that person is this political belief, then I don't know, maybe they have something that you could learn from. Like maybe you don't agree with their beliefs at all, but you can at least recognize a bit of yourself in them.
I found just asking what are you afraid of works really well.
Mm,
Like, what's scaring you? You seem scared. And even people I can disagree with on red button issues, we can go, okay, you're scared about this. Okay, I'm kind of scared about that too. What do you think we could let's leave the red button words out of this, and let's talk about, this seems to be the root of the problem. You're scared about losing your job. That's terrifying. That's very scary. How do we work together to make sure that you have training for the next wave, for the next thing that could work? Like, you're scared about losing your factory. That's terrible. That's awful. I'm so sorry. How do we train you for something else? Like,
yeah, that's such a great conversation starter too, because that can lead in so many directions as well.
I find it tremendously helpful when talking to people who deeply disagree with me and who I deeply disagree with, because the red button words are scary and they make you want to put your walls up, put your defenses up, get out the cannons and be like, you will not take my rights. And I
Yeah.
understand that. That's a feeling I feel too. It's just, I feel like if you ask first, what are you scared about? And then you work from what someone's afraid of, the actual issue they're scared of, there's usually some room. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with
That's
your family members. You can't, like, I mean, yes, you can. I can't divorce my family members, so I I have to find a way to, but yeah, no, I thoroughly agree with divorcing people who are not emotionally, mentally healthy. Please don't write me letters. I agree with that. I'm just saying, me personally cannot divorce family, must talk to.
oh, well, I live with my mom and dad, so I
So you
definitely can't
really
divorce
can't.
them. Definitely not.
That sounds like
See
you've
them
gotten
every
a
day.
lot of support in your illness from your family.
Yeah, they've been incredible. My parents, they went through hell for me for many years in trying to support me, and seeing what they went through, I yeah, I didn't recognize it for a while, just how significant it was, because I think I was caught up in my own suffering and didn't even recognize that. But when I spoke with them about all that stuff, it really hit me. They've sacrificed so much. My dad retired early to help take care of me. Um, and essentially they were like my 24/7 attendants, like care workers. when I was severely ill, did absolutely everything for me. So they've been incredible and supporting me a little bit, like financially whenever I've needed it. They've been there too. And yeah, so many of my family members, like my parents, are just the beginning. My sister and I are incredibly close as well. My uncles. So I'm really
That's like I try to
fortunate.
explain to my kids. I'm like, you guys better be nice to each other. You're gonna need each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's when family, the value of family really sticks out to you when you get sick, and when you can actually lean on those people.
And that's such a tremendous privilege, and it's a wonderful thing to have. And it's so hard when people don't have that. When your family isn't your refuge, that's so difficult and heartbreaking when you need to actually build your own family from people you haven't had that bond to.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I mean, in my experience, I'm certainly privileged to that. I couldn't imagine where I'd be today if I didn't have all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's those stories are the ones that always hit me in the chest. Like my illness has a over 60% divorce rate.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I have the most amazing husband ever, and I'm just like I am so privileged and lucky and grateful for the family I have. That my family's my support and refuge. Like I can't. It's so hard for me when I or hard for me. That's so selfish. Um, I just it breaks my heart when I hear people's stories where their families are not their refuge.
Right. It's like, where's your safety net if you don't have your family and friends who are there to pick you up?
I guess it's like we're even are trying to build a really big group with the Invisible Not Broken, so we can like provide some of that family support for for others. So, like this is not fair for people not to have this.
Yeah, I think it's such an incredible thing that you guys are doing and bringing everybody together, and like just listening to your guys' podcast as well. It's like a means of support. It's like going to therapy without actually needing to go to therapy.
Well, everyone feel really bad for Eva because it's her job to keep me on track, and I can't tell you how many times I get these texts like, "I sent you an email. I sent you an email. I sent you a freaking email last week, woman. Where is you? You're not reading your emails." So everyone feel really bad for Eva because the poor woman is trying her best to wrangle us together. You put something in there about like what would make you feel better about easier to move in the world. I've got to stop talking with my hands. Such a stupid thing to do when you have Ehlers-Danlos. Um, and you talked about that it would be easier if people understood chronic illness and mental health in a way that it wasn't so hard to talk about because talking about this with others can make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and when I've spoken to other people out in the world, most of my friends are pretty good about talking about this stuff, but some of them, it's a struggle, as well as a lot of strangers that I'll go out and meet. And if I meet somebody and I start up a conversation with them, everything can be going fine until I mention that I live with chronic pain and mental health symptoms as well. And then it's just like the way that people look at you, all of a sudden, like they're like, oh, okay, that's really sucks, and it just completely shifts the way that the entire conversation was going. And sometimes I don't even want to mention that, or I'll just brush it off really quickly. I'll just be like, oh yeah, I've got some chronic illness issues, just so that I don't get that sort of reaction out of people. And I just think life would be so much easier if I could just air out what I've been through, and just people are able to listen, and be present with. I know it's a difficult thing, and if you haven't been exposed to it, it's certainly not the easiest task in the world. But yeah, life wouldn't life be easier for you if you could just chat openly about this stuff?
I honestly, I do chat up. I don't
Yeah.
mind making people a little uncomfortable. I don't
Hmm.
try to make people uncomfortable. I just don't have a filter. I really don't. Like from thought to out of my mouth is happens faster than I realize I'm saying it most of the time. So I have no filter with people, and I tend to just have a Bambi face, and everyone goes through like the stages of disbelief. Like as I, if they want to know about what's going on, it's like I have dislocations 5 to 10 times a day. And then I wait because they look horrified. And then I'm like, okay. And so this, like, what are you doing with your life? Well, I do this and this and this. And then they start calming down after they say a few things like, We all have those stories with people who blunder and they're like, "Oh, your life must be a living hell." I actually got that one. Or, like, just,
No.
yeah, there's a lot of things that people say, and I try to remember that they're grappling with the idea of it too. I only mind when I'm using my cane because if I'm
Mhm.
in my wheelchair, fine, go ahead and talk to me all day, no problem. I'll I'll listen and I'll walk you through it, no problem. But when I'm with my cane, like I had my mail person was coming through with the mail and I was using my cane and she was just could not process me with a cane. And so I was like, okay, so this is, she's like, get better. And I usually say thank you, but I was in a mood. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. I don't get better. This is genetic. The poor woman short circuited. So I had to stand there with my cane because I couldn't get out of the conversation now. I was already in. I'm like, I will never not just say thank you again. Like, I'm never doing it again. But it was like 15 minutes of trying to calm this woman down as she's processing my life. Like, she couldn't, yeah. So, yes,
People,
make it easier.
yeah, people get especially uncomfortable around mobility devices as well. I'm a part of a media lab, and one person in the class was just telling me about how, like, people will always ask, "Oh, how long have you been in that wheelchair for?" And I thought that his answer was really brilliant. He was just like, "Oh, since 7:30 this morning." He's
Cute.
like, "It's like I don't sleep in this thing. Come on, like."
Napping, yeah. But yeah, someone I know calls everyone who's healthy temporarily abled. And I thought that was a really important change of phrases. We were talking about the importance of language.
That's a really great way of looking at it, because I mean, like, we're all going to either live long enough to become disabled or we'll die first, right?
Mhm.
Like, nobody's immune to aging, and yeah, we're all going to go through some sort of health issues throughout our lives. So that is a really important distinction to
I
make.
think so. Like, if we're planning our laws, if we're planning our disability laws, if we're planning for cities, if we're planning for housing, I think remembering that every single person's going to need things to be gentler is important.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Do you find that accessibility in where you're living, is that an issue?
Oh man, that came out as a cackle, didn't it? So I call it Cripple X Games here. I've
Yep.
gotten thrown out of my wheelchair more times than I can count because you think, like, as I live near Berkeley, so you think like super like hippie, like everyone's like into making everything accessible, and no, they don't care. Like, there's like tree trunks in the middle of streets. This is the other thing. Like, when you get disabled, you realize how ignorant you were to everything before. Like, when you were temporarily abled, you didn't think about things. Like, if you're walking across the street and someone's in a wheelchair, you might have crossed in the center of the street, and you never once thought the streets are actually a hump. They're not usually straight flat. They're a hump. So if I go off to the side to avoid you, I'm going to fall on my side.
Right.
And I also need the middle of that ramp. I can't go up that little like area where it goes into like a ledge. I can't do that. So either I need to go into your ankles and make you disabled, or you need to move. It's kind of funny, the things that you just didn't even think about before.
Yeah, you see the world in a completely new light.
Yeah, and I used to think like, oh, there's a ramp to that door. That's great. They made that it's not fucking accessible. Like, if it's a ramp, it's not accessible. It means I have to roll backwards while grabbing the door, opening it while I roll backwards onto the ramp, locking my wheelchair, unlocking it, and somehow throwing myself through the door before the door closes. Like, that's not accessible at all unless there's a button to hit so the door opens. That ramp is very scary, especially when it's like those like 20 to 30-degree ramps.
Oh yeah, that's a huge safety hazard too.
Oh,
And I
it's
mean,
it's like it's a YouTube video waiting to happen is what that is.
yeah, lawsuit waiting to happen as well.
Not really.
No?
No. If you want to sue, this is the big thing everyone thinks. They're like, oh, someone's not accessible. You can sue them. No, I have to hire a lawyer. That's expensive.
Right.
And the best that the lawyer can do is like send someone out to look at it and then send them a letter. And then there's like a whole bunch of loopholes for businesses to get around that. Because the United States, sorry, never mind. Yeah, okay. But real quick, we have this weird libertarian idea that the market will correct itself. So if, like, I get told all the time on Twitter, on Facebook, if this place is not accessible to you, thank you, Target, for your big pillars in the middle of aisles. I really appreciate that. Don't shop there. It's like, okay, but where do I shop then? Like, there's not enough people in wheelchairs who get out to make this a market correction thing.
Yeah, and isn't it technically, the ADA, aren't all shops supposed to be
They're supposed to be,
accessible?
they're not, and there's a whole bunch of ways around it. Either grandfathered in clauses, or if they're making what's called a reasonable effort, their reasonable effort is good enough.
That's some extremely vague language
It
there.
is some impressively vague language, and if you think of it like, oh well, it's at least a step. If you think about what the disabled community had to do to get there, like they marched, wheeled on Washington, and pulled themselves up the Capitol steps on their forearms. That is serious sacrifice, bravery, and intense physical labor. And the best they could do was some very like mild milquetoast language in their laws that they still didn't really uphold. And thanks to the new administration, a lot of this got gutted.
Fuck.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm allowed
Yeah.
to swear here, right? I've heard it
Wait,
before on the podcast, so
no, go ahead. No, I'm trying. My auntie has been on my case about my swearing. So my auntie always wins, and I've been a little better. But no, we're in pain. We get to fucking swear. But yeah, it's really frustrating. And I don't know if you've been traveling since you've been sick, but traveling is very dicey when you're using mobility aids.
Yeah. I've only traveled once since I got very sick, and it was really just to Utah for a quick trip and rented a house. So there wasn't too much of actual traveling around. So luckily, I didn't run into too many barriers there. But I mean, besides the extremely dry climate, but that was
There's that.
yeah. I don't know if you count that as an accessibility barrier, but I felt
I
like I
thought
couldn't
that was a
breathe for a
moisture
week.
barrier.
Yeah, yeah.
I highly recommend the traveling still, but it does require a lot more consideration and calls.
Hmm. Yeah. Have you found airports to be pretty accessible?
I found SFO to be fantastic. I found Georgia to be the absolute worst ever. Like shockingly bad. Like someone actually took my wheelchair and parked me in a corner and went on break. And my husband was like, I need to
Really?
take her to get onto our next flight. And they're like, yeah, you can't touch that wheelchair. So I got like put in a corner. I was like baby in a corner. It was very dirty dancing.
Yeah, you're like,
If my husband was any calmer, he'd be in a coma. But I've never seen him like he does not get mad. You have to like work to get him mad, and he was pissed.
oh, I would be furious. I mean, that's treating you like you're just an object
Oh
that
no, I
you
was
push
luggage.
off.
I was
Yeah.
luggage, and I dislocated my shoulder so violently that my I'm motioning this as everyone's like listening to this. My brachius was almost to like my breastbone. It was all the way over, and so I just asked the lady. I was like, do you know where I can get an ace bandage? All of my stuff is. By the way, never lock your braces in your luggage. Do not do that. Put it in your backpack. Do not travel without bracing if you're understanding this. I didn't, and like, can I get a doctor or someone who can help me relocate this before a 4-hour flight? Like, or just give me an ace bandage. I'll relocate it myself. I just need a bandage. Yeah, not my problem. And she turned around and walked off. Like, just not
That
dealing
is
with you.
rough.
It's like I was nice. I was not even my usual bitchy, snarky self. Wow.
I don't think I would have been that calm if I were in your position there.
There's not a
Yeah.
lot you can do when you have tickets. Like if they decide you are not a safe person to
Right.
fly, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I found SFO to be incredibly wheelchair accessible. They're actually trying to put in plans for wheelchairs that are programmed to get you to your gate. So your wheelchair you'd like reserve the wheelchair, it would meet you at your cab, and then it would wheel you to your gate, which
Yep.
I am dying for that to happen. I'm really excited. SFO is working with the company that I have a wheelchair with. So I'm really psyched for that. I'm like, come on, guys, be nice.
That'd be amazing. That'd
Yeah,
be
and the other
amazing.
places, like I've traveled all over Europe, and while the airports aren't terribly accessible, the people are so kind. Like I just really nice people who rush around to do what they can to adapt for you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, when you're going on these trips, like, how do you plan for them? Do you research each city ahead of time and the accessibility in it?
I don't have the attention span. My husband does. He's fantastic. And I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, so I use my wheelchair on days like today where I'm dislocating my legs. Like so, when my legs are going, I use my wheelchair. The next few trips we're going to, we were supposed to actually be in England last month, but COVID.
Yeah.
So this is going to be my first full wheelchair trip this year. where I was not going to use my canes. Because we did Paris the year before where I was in canes, and that was just brutally painful. I can never do that again.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know with the next trip when COVID, if COVID calms down and we travel again, it will definitely be full time. I have a really cool wheelchair where it goes over potholes, and it has these like really cool wheels that can go over like a 3-inch differential, and
That's awesome.
it's
That's
really
great.
fun. And now you're interviewing me, so I'm putting you back on the spot.
Yeah, this did switch around here.
It did, and I
I
love
don't know
it.
how that
Thank you.
happened.
When you have 2 podcast hosts, it's bound to happen. You talked about, and by the way, we're at an hour, and I will kidnap you. So at any time where you're like, this hurts, I'm done, just tell me to shut up and I will stop. I promise. I will not actively kidnap you.
No,
I don't
this
have the
is
energy.
energizing me right now, so this is great.
I'm really glad to hear that. You talked about candlelight meditation, and I've never heard about that. It just kind of sounded fascinating. I wonder if it actually really helps your sleep.
It does, yeah, a lot. That's something that I've started implementing in the past 6 months. I heard about it on some podcast I was listening to about somebody who just turns off all the lights in their house at a certain hour and just turns on candles instead. And that essentially that's what I've been doing for when it gets to 8 o'clock. I shut off all the lights. I put away my phone. Maybe I'll listen to a podcast, but that's it. I won't look at my phone screen at all. And I will just walk around the upstairs of my parents' house here in absolute darkness, just with a candle. So I'll do some meditation with it. I will, yeah, that will essentially, I won't use any natural light. And there's, I, yeah, I remember hearing about this on a David Suzuki program, The Nature of Things. I don't think that plays in the States at all, but there's something with blue light that suppresses the production of melatonin in our brains, which melatonin is the chemical that helps us sleep. So um, we didn't evolve. We didn't evolve with blue light at nighttime or the rest of the light spectrum because we were always in darkness. But when you've got candlelight and it's fire, it's more red shifted. That actually encourages the production of melatonin in our brain. So I find now when I just turn off my candlelights or when I blow them out, I can just fall asleep quite easily. And
I'm
that's something
gonna
that
give that a
could
try.
never
If I
happen
could stay
before.
awake and not like forget to blow it out, I could see that happening with me.
That could certainly happen. Yeah. That could be a fire hazard, yeah.
But I love that idea. Like, that sounds like a really peaceful way to stop the day.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I am the most irritable person in the world when I don't get a good sleep. So for me, I mean, it's for everybody's benefit in my household for me to get a good sleep. So
Well, you need your creative mind to come up with new raps. I really see being the next like Randy
yeah.
Sparkle. Like,
Yeah, hey, maybe that's a new career for me. If podcasting doesn't end up panning out, I'll just become a rapper.
I mean, it depends on what you want from podcasting, like, what you're actually looking to gain from it. Monetary, we have not figured that out,
No, not at
but as
all.
far as like being finding purpose after being sick, this was kind of all I asked for from the podcast was to find purpose.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too.
So how
Me
does
too.
social life work? If you don't want to answer that question, but I'm just curious. It's very different points in our lives. I'm just curious how this worked for you for social life.
Oh, how my illness impact my
Yeah.
social life? Um, I I find it hard going to bigger group gatherings. Well, sorry, I should back up a little bit. When I got really severely ill, I think everybody, when you get really, really sick, you're going to lose some friends in your life. I think everybody.
Titanic Exodus, sure, some, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I certainly had that. Some friends dropped out, but I also had a lot of friends stick around. And for whatever it was, a year when I was severely ill, dealing with severe mental health symptoms, suicidal ideation, and all that, I rarely went 2 days in a row without having a visitor. I'm extremely, extremely lucky to have that support network. They were really what kept me going until I was able to get the medical help that I needed to help recover. And yeah, since then, I mean, those friends have continued to support me My health is much more stable now than it was, and I don't need that amount of social support. But yeah, I'm still extremely close with all of them. I brain fog moment here. Right. I was going to talk about how it's now impacted me. I still find it. I used to be extremely extroverted. I loved going to parties, meeting as many people as I possibly could there. I just can't handle that mentally. It feels like such a strenuous workout going to parties, meeting new people, carrying on a conversation. It's like I don't even know. I'm putting all of my focus towards just listening to the person and not completely zoning out. And yeah, it's such a difficult thing that it's like I don't want to put myself through that constantly. I'll do it every once in a while, but can't be a weekly thing.
I'm always intrigued by extroverts. Like I can give talks to 1,000 people. I've had no problem like public speaking. No worries. There's a message. I can get it across. I can even chat. But the idea of like being in a room full of more than like 50 people that I don't have a targeted idea of what I'm doing, I will hide in the corner and find the bookshelf, and that is exactly where I will be. I will find your books and I will go through your bookshelf. It's
That's an awesome way to to handle that problem.
There's no way. I am an introvert when it comes to like mass. Like I like one-on-one or even like 4 people, but more than that, and I can't process everyone.
I'll
It's
just
too many like yeah, needs, wants, egos. Like I can't navigate that.
I'll take lots of bathroom breaks, just not even to go and use the washroom, but just to give myself some space to breathe.
Center self, water
Yeah.
on face. I hear that. I just do that with the bookshelf. Then I feel like you can
Great
learn a
strategy.
lot from someone by looking at their bookshelves. Like if I find like books that I love on someone else's bookshelf, I'm like, oh, I love you. We're friends. How did you know me so well?
It's a great way to get to know somebody, just looking at their bookshelf.
If I see a
Yeah.
Sandman like comic shelf on someone's bookshelf, I'm like, oh, we're good. We're fine.
You and I need to become friends.
I would love that. Do you read Sandman?
Mm. Sorry, no, I was saying that would be what you would say to
Ah,
that other person.
yes. No, that is
No, I don't actually read Sandman myself.
that has been my obsession since high school. I love Neil Gaiman. So yes, I'm a
Nice.
big fan. I love fantasy
Nice.
fiction. If I get trapped in this human body shell that does not work, I get to read fantasy. That's my role.
Nice. Nice.
So I don't know if it's going to go too dark, and if it is, we can absolutely change back over to like cool TV shows. But you talked about suicide ideology, and
Mhm.
I have I have scars to prove it. What talked you back?
So I never actually attempted suicide or anything. For me, it was something that I faced daily when I was so severely ill and isolated up in my room. Um, and it's when the alarm bells are constantly going off in your brain, you're in so much pain, you're not able to get any sort of restful sleep, your thoughts are just going to spiral out of control. And for me, that's what started to happen on a daily basis. And um essentially there were always those thoughts that were going through my head at that point for quite a while. I would say probably for 8 months to a year. Um, that was something constantly that I was dealing with, and my way of coping with that was just to distract myself, listen to podcasts, just from the moment I'd wake up until the moment I'd go to sleep. I would have something on to distract myself, so where I could direct my attention towards that. It did get bad a number of times, where I would tell my parents this is what I'm feeling, kind of, and my close friends as well, my sister, and almost as like a cry for help, like I am really really miserable right now. I need support. Um, and it's very hard to do that because you feel like you're burdening other people when you come out and actually say that. But it also was like, I need to go and say this to feel like I'm being heard, to get somebody to talk to me so that I can calm down. Um, so that I can calm down enough to like whatever, go fall asleep or distract myself until these thoughts finally fade away for a little bit. But yeah, they were pretty constant. They were there quite quite constantly in my life for close to a year.
I think the distraction is one of the least used tools and one of the most effective tools in the toolbox.
It really is. And coming from my background where I had the meditation background, I felt like I was supposed to be able to meditate through it or let go of these suicidal thoughts. But you just get to a place that's so dark and clouded, and your mind isn't able to, you're not processing your thoughts normally. You know that, like, depression lies. You know that, but
Mhm.
you can't really see it in the moment when it's happening. And so really, I just found after a while, I think I was talking to one of my psychologists about it, and she was like, it's okay to distract yourself. Like, it's okay to not be able to meditate. Like, if you're in a really dark place, maybe that's something you can't do right now, and that's okay. And hearing that took that burden off of me in a way where I guess I felt like I was just being a bad meditator or whatever, or I was just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I was blaming myself for not being able to let go of it. And she just pointed the reality to me. It's like, you're in a really, really difficult position. Like, I hope you understand that. And hearing those words kind of helped me understand.
And
Yeah,
meditation can look different for different people. Like it doesn't have to be sitting in a dark room not thinking. Like it can be meditation can be many different things.
for sure. It can be, yeah, it can be anything really. You can turn anything into meditation. I wasn't able to walk, but if you are just going out for a walk, that can be a meditation.
That's the thing I
And
miss the most. I miss
yeah,
going for hikes. Like that was where I
yeah,
got my happy was going out and hiking in the trails and just like I could just like zone or driving with loud music. Like I miss driving and hiking.
yeah, yeah. It's so difficult to adapt when you lose those things that you love so much.
Those are the hardest things to lose. It wasn't like losing work was really hard and painful, but losing my coping mechanisms, that sucked the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely. Myself, I'm still able to hike to some extent now, not as much as I was. And I had a recent leg injury that kind of threw that off for me. Um, so
Insult
yeah,
to injury.
yeah, dealing with that COVID and a bunch and chronic illness, it's fun. Uh, yeah, yeah, I know it's really difficult when you lose something that you also relate to a sense of your own identity. You know, yeah, it's very
Yeah,
challenging to lose that.
like ballet, that was really hard to lose that. It was like that was who you are, and then it's like, "Nope, that's not who you are anymore. You better figure out the next person you are now."
Yeah, there's that grieving stage when you're grieving the old self that you used to be. For me, it was athletics. I was a
Mm.
rower and then a triathlete, and like having to give up that. It's like that was my only way of external. That was my way of like expressing myself and letting go of like my day's stress. And when you lose that, it's like, well, I have no idea what to do now.
That is, that's something we've definitely talked a lot about on the podcast is having to like shed skin, start a new thing. Just really quickly, I just want to go back to the suicide for just a minute because, like,
Yeah,
if you are feeling like this and you're listening to this and this is like absolutely like hitting you in the solar plexus, uh, we'll have a suicide hotline up at the very top that is both text if you're feeling too anxious to talk to someone and an actual phone number. From my own attempts, I would say that the thing that got me through was don't do anything at night. um, the depression monster seems to be really able to lie very well at night. And definitely, yeah, I would say just like the curiosity of what happens next is like one of the big things that has always got me through. I always want to find out how something ends. So if you can be curious about what the next minute's going to bring, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that can be a helpful thing to get through. And distraction is your friend. I just didn't want to let us go without like a few little definitely
yeah,
the suicide hotline, please. If you don't have someone in your house that you feel like you can talk to, that is an important thing. I'm curious about your media lab.
yeah, yeah. So I joined this. I'm on the advisory board for this media lab now. It's called D Next, and it's run by the Center for Independent Living of Toronto. And this was something that has recently been set up, but essentially we have created this training program to help support and train emerging media artists. So whether they be storytellers, people that are into social media, creating short documentaries, that sort of thing. So it's essentially like a 10-week program where we sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here.
Those trains are so fast.
They just come and go, and it's like you're on a path and everything makes sense, and then brain fog kicks in and it's like, yeah, you just totally lose it. Okay, I think I can get back on this one. We've put together this like 10-week training program where essentially we're providing them with the tools to learn how to use different media equipment, talking about story structure, and then we go and empower them to go and actually create stories. So we're just finishing up kind of the very first round. It got interrupted by COVID. I'm actually going through the training program myself, as well as being on the advisory committee. But yeah, we were about to shoot a short documentary about a father who lives with quadriplegia and all that, and then COVID hit, and it's like you can't go inside of his house anymore. So now we're pivoting, and we're kind of coming up with a new story. But yeah, one of the other groups, the other group, there's only two. They they created a podcast around mobility aids and the joy that they add to their lives. Most people, when a lot of able-bodied people, when they look at a wheelchair, they look at it as a negative thing. But really, like people with disabilities, they're like, this is my vehicle out into the world. So it was a really neat episode where they spoke about that, all sorts of different mobility aids and the different value that they add to their lives.
That's definitely one of the things that I feel like a lot of media gets wrong on wheelchair users. Like, I love my wheelchair. That is movement without pain. That's freedom.
Absolutely. And so I think that's a huge part of why this entire project is important. DNext, the entire purpose behind it is to get people with disabilities to tell stories on disability, because when you've got mainstream media, they have very short timelines that they need to meet. They're going to fall victim. They're going to be stigmatizing our experience. We really need people with disabilities to tell their own stories. We need to get them out in media. I mean, you look at Hollywood, for example, 95% of characters who are disabled are played by non-disabled people. And it's like, how can this person really project what this experience is? How can this person give an accurate representation of what living with this disability is like? There's so many issues with that. There's issues of different characters in movies. Their entire story will simply be their disability. It's just they are the person with a disability. We pity them. That's it. When you go out and you meet a lot of people with disabilities, many people have simply adapted to them. Many people have been born with them, and that is all they know. And they don't see their quality of life as any different from people who are able-bodied.
Yeah. Like at the very least, screenwriters, if you're going to write the story, you need to spend a lot of time in that community. Like it's important. It's really neat though, in the last like 2 years, to see more decision makers not be the decision makers of the past in stories. Like you're seeing more voices that are actually telling the stories, and it's made for much better entertainment.
Exactly. Like everybody benefits from it. The quality of the production is going to be better because it's more believable as well. Yeah.
There's like a big push for Seth MacFarlane. Oh, I hope I don't get that wrong. There's a thing for science in media where there's an act. I'm also a science nerd.
Me too.
Right? Oh my God! Yay! I just kidnapped someone on a whole talk on robotics. So it's just fascinating stuff. But he started a whole thing on getting scientists to be able to talk to scriptwriters and directors, so that when they're doing these storylines on time travel or on space travel or planets or diseases, that they were actually getting the science right, because the story is better if there's a kernel of truth in it. Like that's way better. I'm really hoping that something like that for disability happens, so that there's, when a writer wants to write a disabled character, they don't pull a Glee and like have all the dreams be, I can dance now, I'm out of my wheelchair. Like we just, we need better stories. So I'm really hoping that that could happen, where we would have something like what your project is, your think tank group, that we could have something like that for media.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. That'd be incredible. I sure hope that this trend continues and that things get better and better
We
as
need
we
enough
go.
disabled people with energy to pull this off. We need a
Yeah,
lot of us who can like pick up when one of us is like brain fog, can't.
that certainly could be an issue. Yeah, we can't. Not all of us could be working 15-hour days like I know they do have on set. So there are those limitations
Yeah,
that come into play. But at the same time, that can be. I think that some of the responsibility for that can rely on the industry itself to change a little bit. Like for individual characters who have disabilities, just have the scenes that they're in shoot for over a shorter period of time, or give them more days to do all those shoots. Yeah.
I've seen like a few more shows that are doing better. Like, oh, was it Never Have I Ever? They actually did a decent story, and I was pretty impressed with that. And The Magicians, which is like my favorite show ever, they actually did disability and mental health really well, and addiction. I felt like they did one of the best jobs dealing with mental health and physical disability of any show.
I need to get a list of TV shows from you because it sounds like you've got the best recommendations for that.
I spend way too. I think I finished Netflix at this point. I think I've actually like exhausted Netflix.
You could
So
start a whole podcast on that alone.
okay, so we are. We're going to start bringing in like any of our previous guests who want to like come back and chat, and they don't know exactly what they want to chat about, but they actually enjoyed talking with us. We're going to have like a monthly pop culture episode where we're going to talk about disability and pop culture.
That's amazing. Oh, I can't
Yeah,
wait. I can't wait for
come
that.
on back.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Just choose your favorite show and we can talk about, like, as long as it's something that I have watched or I'm willing to watch. I'm getting a little exhausted with the superheroes right now. We're doing a superheroes and disability thing right now, and I'm really getting disgusted. I'm having a hard time with this one. I'm like, hey, yeah, can we get out of the Lycra for a minute, please? That's a lot. So yeah, come back on and talk about that. We're at like an hour and a half almost.
Yep.
So what are some of your favorite shows that are getting you through COVID? And I'm
So
actually just looking for advice, basically, is what this is coming down to.
so I actually have not been watching too much TV at all lately,
I'm
and that
trying
kind of I
good
know.
luck, Tim.
I do have lots of, podcasts. Well, okay, I did watch a show the other day, Night on Earth. I love nature documentaries, so that's a huge thing for me. Anything to do with the ocean as well is just that always that is the stuff that I'm most interested in. You see, especially when you get into the deep ocean, you get into
God.
bioluminescence, you get into all these super weird alien looking like fishes that are down there. That stuff always fascinates me.
I don't understand
Um,
why we look for life outside, and like
I
exactly what we're
know.
looking for is like the imagination of like creature design exists right here in like deep water or in
we
micro. Like the micro stuff fascinates me, like the little germs and what they look like. That's fascinating.
it's so incredible. Yeah, and what you were saying there, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the ocean itself, like the depths of the ocean. So,
Who was the original NASA astronaut who went and worked on deep sea diving?
that's a good question. I have heard of that. It's not coming to me.
Nope. I know exactly what it looks like. It's just not. Anyway, go ahead and like put it in the show in our comments if you can remember who it is. I'm sure I'll Google it later if I remember. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much we know about outside, but we don't know what's going on our own planet.
It really is. It really is. So yeah, for me, nature documentaries are a huge thing. I'm trying to think. Yeah,
Did
crap.
you
I
watch
meant to
The
watch.
Cosmos?
What's up?
Neil deGrasse Tyson, The Cosmos.
Yeah, I did. I did.
My
That was great. I'm
God.
such a huge fan. I'm such a huge space fan as well.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen Interstellar?
I probably did. Remind me.
So that was the one where it's in the future and the Earth is essentially dying due to climate disaster, and
Okay,
everybody's going to
no.
die.
And I will tell you right now, I will not watch or read any post-apocalyptic stuff because it's too close to home. I
Oh
need
yeah.
escapism. I cannot hang with like we're too close. Like no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. I need to
I,
escape this.
I totally hear you. It certainly is really, it is quite scary to think about.
Sorry,
It
Tim
was
is
one of
not practicing social distancing.
the, hello there.
Yeah, sorry, my cat. I did not realize she was actually in the room. And the cat has no understanding of social distancing.
No,
No.
she's family, right?
Well, it depends. Like, she also likes to wake me up in the morning by jumping across my chest with claws, and that's how she lets me know she wants out. And then she's not family. Then she's not my favorite creature. And there's
That's
no
her.
she's from on the farm.
That's her way of expressing love for you.
I don't understand it. She'll like purr and like she does like all the cute cat like I love you things while she's deveining me. And I don't understand what's going on. I'm very confused at this like masochistic relationship she's put us in. I'm very lost.
That's a horrible way to wake up in the morning.
Way. I'm really not okay with it. But she's one of the like fluffiest, like sweetest, like most fun things to pet ever. She's so soft. It's like, yeah.
Great time to have a great time to have a cat as a companion.
But we have a farm. We've got we just got 3 new baby chicks.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, we got 3 grown chickens, and then we've got a wolf who's 96 pounds, who the rescue told us 50 pounds. That was cute. And we had 96-pound wolf. And then we have a pug.
Okay, you got to tell me, how does that work? Like, is the wolf trained?
Badly.
Does he
Very badly. I call him the wolf. I call him my little dire wolf. He's actually half shepherd and half border collie. So he's very pretty. He is so pretty. And he's one of the sweetest animals ever. But he knows that he can get me back into bed for snuggles if he takes my legs out.
Oh no.
So he like will like sidle up to me, like being all sweet and like wanting pets, and then he'll lean into my legs until they crack. And then
Oh
I have to
no.
go back to bed. And he's like, "Oh, that's sad, mommy." And then he like comes over. And I also have POTS, so I faint really easily. It's a heart issue. So
Me
you have
too,
it too.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry we never we're good. We're both sick, if that helps. We did not go into specifics. So I faint a lot. And so his way of dealing with that is to lay across my body all 96 pounds. So I'll wake up
Oh no.
96 pounds across my chest. He's like, "You shouldn't be standing. What? You need to be laying down. You're going to stay here."
That certainly won't help with circulation.
No, but it's really funny. I was laughing so hard I couldn't call for anyone. So my husband made me get the Apple Watch so that I could like, because he works on the other side of the house. So I was like, this way I can like let him know the dog is on top of me. Please come save me. I can't move. And then we have the little pug who's like a very large hamster and very excitable.
That's amazing. I'm really jealous.
I totally understand that. Like my sister is at home with like no kids, no animals, and I don't know how she handles it. Like I've got 2 kids at home. I have 2 teenagers at home, and that's fantastic. I love it. I really love it. And I've got my pets. I don't know how everyone deals without animals.
Yeah. I've never had any dogs or cats or
No,
anything. We've had
my
fish.
heart.
We've had fish. We've had
It's not the
snakes,
same. You
but
You've had snakes?
king cobras though.
I'm sorry, you've had a cobra?
No king cobras.
Okay, I was sorry, you gave me a minute
No.
there. I like what we were doing just fine here until
Yeah,
my daughter would be so jealous that I will not have a snake in the house, and she wants one more than life itself.
Oh, they were pretty docile. Nothing venomous or anything.
I love snakes. I will not feed one. I cannot. I used to have rats as pets, and I cannot handle the idea of taking like a little rat and putting it in a cage where it can't get away.
Yeah, we didn't actually feed them any rats. They were we only fed them worms. But
Oh, that's easier.
yep,
I know
much
it shouldn't
easier.
be. I mean, I get life is life, but I can deal a lot better if they're not cute. Like if it's not a Disney character, it's much easier.
It really is. Yeah, I don't have a huge emotional attachment to worms.
I just have to get rid of them or put them in my garden as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry, you had like the documentaries, and is there anything else that you want to talk about? We will absolutely have like if you go to our show notes at the very top, I will have all of the links for Discomfort Zone podcast. It'll be really easy to go and listen to all the episodes, which I highly recommend doing. You need more episodes. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Thank you. I've got a couple in the works right now,
Okay,
which are hopefully going to come out soon.
I need more content.
I'm certainly going to get some more in a month or so.
Is there anything else you wanted to discuss or push forward that we distractedly meandered past? And you're always welcome back on.
Thank you so much. No, I think that's everything. And brain fog is kind of kicking in for me pretty bad. So I think if I continue for too much longer, I'm going to get incredibly boring. So
I mean, hey, or we'll just talk about snakes for the rest of the episode.
I could do that.
We could do that. We could talk documentaries. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Be kind, be gentle, as always, in whatever way it looks like to you. It's never been more important. Be a badass. We do not have any advertising. So if you want to support the episode, just head over to our Patreon. It's a kind thing to do if that's just not in your budget or not in what you want to deal with. No worries. If you could share these episodes, it means the world to us. We just hit 200,000 downloads. Humbled beyond belief. I just jaw dropped. Like I think the only continent that is not listening is Antarctica right now. So we're just humbled and beyond grateful. So that's all thanks to you guys sharing. So thank you so much, everyone. Head over to the YouTube if you actually want to see what we look like. That's always fun. Hi, smiles. And I think Eva will be on next week. So this is Monica Michelle with Explicitly Sick. Some of you know we've actually turned Invisible Not Broken into a network. So we now have multiple podcasts on our network. So mine's Explicitly Sick. So have a great week, everyone.